So, welcome everybody. I am joined by Robin Seeley, who is my San Francisco City Guide fellow tour guide. How are you doing today, Robin?
Pretty good, thanks.
And we've also got Nikki Tresvigna here. How are you, Nikki?
Fine, thank you.
Love your hat.
Yes, we're still in the middle of Latino Heritage Month, so I want to make sure that I dress appropriately.
Yeah, and we did not do a specific Latino Heritage Month program on Art Viewing Adventures, but I kind of feel like that's always an important topic for us. And of course, we had talked about Diego Rivera last month, and we'll schedule something soon.
Well, that'd be great. I'd love to help you do that. And we had one of our biggest shows was on the Diego Rivera mural, which is came ahead of the exhibit. So those are online with your on your
They
uh
are. They're on YouTube, and if you are connected to me in any way, I can direct you to them. But I just wanted to, we got a minute or two before we officially start. Robin, you are a fellow city guide, but you do 8 different tours for city guides.
That's true.
You and I both do the Salesforce Transit Center, but what are some of what are the ones you do that relate to architecture?
Well, one that might surprise a lot of people is the Golden Gate Bridge, because a lot of its design was done by an architect, Irving Morrow, and his wife, who was also an architect. And in fact, his wife gets credit for the Art Deco design of the
The
Golden Gate
towers.
Bridge towers.
Yeah, that's great. That is kind of a very distinctive feature of the bridge.
Yeah, most people don't realize that the cross cross beams, decorative cross beams in the bridge towers are what's called zigzag deco. And I show my walkers comparable examples of zigzag deco on buildings. And it's kind of weird. You're looking at it at a building and then you're looking at it on a bridge tower, and then they make the connection. It's kind of fun.
So one of the big takeaways from that tour would be we would then know to look for zigzag deco.
Absolutely.
And important to this show, you live in Alameda,
Correct.
and we're going to get to all that because we're going to talk about Robert Bechtle, who grew up in Alameda. So this is Art Viewing Adventures. We're just kind of getting started. Robin, tell us about another one of your tours. Like I know you do like the Mission Murals, which is kind of near
No,
and dear to.
we give, City Guides gives 3 different tours in the Mission District. One is called Mission Murals. I don't give that one. One is called Mission Dolores Neighborhood. I don't give that one. The one I give is called Murals and the Multi-Ethnic Mission. And so we talk about the history of the Mission District going back to March 29th, 1776, when the first site was consecrated for the mission, although they ended up putting it somewhere else. But so the Mission District is older. That's March 29th, 1776. This neighborhood, the neighborhood is older than this country. And so it's a lot of fun tracing for with people the history of the neighborhood and why it's such a multi-ethnic neighborhood, and
Cool.
always has been.
Well, I haven't done that
Well,
yet,
after
but
it was founded.
and
Yeah.
that is a very art. You have murals on that tour.
Yes.
So maybe we will have to do some version of that for this program. But let's go ahead and get started. It's Art Viewing Adventures. I'm Rodney Paul. We meet twice a month to talk about art topics that often relate to the Bay Area. This one today certainly does. And we're hosted by the Community Living Campaign, and Nikki Tresvigna is our community connector. Nikki, tell us about Community Living Campaign and some of the stuff that's coming up.
Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Jennifer, our tech support today. Hi, I'm Nikki. I'm with the Community Living Campaign, and we're a nonprofit in San Francisco, and we're dedicated to providing services, information, and advocacy to seniors and people with disabilities in San Francisco. Some of you may have seen our calendar. It comes out every 2 months, and it's chock full uh, of Zooms and other types of meetings. And we are very committed to closing the digital divide of technology and seniors or technology and people with disabilities. And we provide classes, and that either online, sometimes we assist over the phone. So I really like being a part of this organization. And of course, this month we're also celebrating Latino Heritage Month. So I wanted to wear something that represented my Mexican heritage. So that's why I'm wearing this hat. And we do have another, we've had 3 events for Latino Heritage Month. And the third one is coming up next Monday evening. It's going to be on the 3rd at 6 o'clock. And we're bringing Dr. Chodos. Dr. Chodos has been doing health programs for us every Friday for a long time now. And she's dedicated some of her time to writing, doing a project called 80 over 80. And she found 80 people that are 80 and older who have really, achieved a lot in their lives and have a story to tell. And she put this project online. So what we're going to do next week for Latino Heritage Month is bring some of the 80-year-olds that are Latino and 80 over 80 and talk to them about their lives. So it should be really, really fun. And I encourage you to attend and be prepared to talk about somebody in your family that you really admire their accomplishments. So, and we're going to tie that to Dia de los Muertos as well. So thank you, Rodney, for asking me about that. And I'm so glad that Robin's here talking about one of my favorite topics, cars. So
Cars and houses.
proceed.
So we call this this program "What's So Interesting About Houses and Cars?" because we're going to be talking about the art of Robert Bechtle, one of the great Bay Area, well, one of the great American artists. But I'm joined. First, I want to introduce Robin Seeley, my guest. Robin, thanks for joining. Robin is a fellow San Francisco City Guide. She and I are both guides at the Salesforce Transit Center. And Robin gives she gives 8 different tours for City Guides. And I think you're on the board too, right?
I did serve on the board, and I'm on different committees now. I'm on the nominating committee and some others, but I'm no longer actively on the board.
Well, I'm really grateful to all you've done for City Guides because I love the organization. But we are here to really also talk about something else we have in common, which is we both love the art of Robert Bechtle. And Robin actually lives in Alameda, which is where a lot of the paintings we're going to see. They're showing houses and cars in Alameda, in other parts of the Bay Area. But this is really, I think, one of his most famous paintings. And I'll go ahead and reveal that the title is Alameda Gran Torino, and it's showing us a Gran Torino in Alameda. And Robin, I remember I started giving this program at the beginning of the pandemic, and I think you attended, and then you got in touch with me and said, I think I know where some of these houses are. He says, I think they're right around where I live. And so you did some exploration, and then I came over. And this is like during the pandemic. I think we were wearing masks when we did this
Yeah, we were
outside.
still wearing masks outdoors.
Yeah. And we went and looked at some of these places. So Alameda, Gran Torino. Well, first, before we start talking about that, I want to just throw a question out to the audience and also to you, Robin, which is, is there any kind of mood we get from this painting? Like, is there an emotional response that you get? What is it? Where does your mind go when you look at this painting?
Well,
You
I
can
want to
do
let
that.
everybody else get a chance to answer.
Yeah, we'll see. If you're, we don't have a giant audience today. By the way, it's Rosh Hashanah, so happy Rosh Hashanah to my fellow um, Jews who, so it's our 5,783rd year. Um, but yeah, so just some thoughts out there. If you guys want to put stuff in chat or you want to unmute, that's fine. How about you, Nikki? Like, what kind of reaction do you get looking at this painting?
Oh, it just feels very old school, and that color, that avocado green, we had that on refrigerators and dishwashers, remember? So that color brings back memories. And of course, the wood paneling, we don't see that anymore. So that's something that I miss as a nice addition to the look of our cars. But I remember these cars, and I had my best friend in seventh grade, a little bit before this. They had a big family, and they would pile into that car, and just I love cars. I love these nice big old cars.
So it makes you think of like people you knew, big family,
Family.
kind of like you imagine all the kids getting in the car.
Yeah, you
It's
can
funny
tell
because
by the hand thing, to open the door, that you could pile people in to the back. You didn't have to lower the hatch thing. You could just open the back like a regular door and pile people in.
yeah, I see Karen says it kind of gives her a sense of peacefulness seeing this. It's a peaceful image to her. Jennifer, I love this thought. Brady Bunch, LOL. She says, yeah, I could see Mr. and Mrs. Brady getting into this with I don't know, could they get all six kids in the car? And then Roger says, an old suburban quiet look. Yeah, there is something really quiet about this painting. So it's we Robin, you found the address, 2807 Bayview. This is where it is in Alameda. So it's very close to the bay front, or I guess it's really the estuary there, right? No, it's the bayfront.
No, that is San Francisco Bay.
Right here, San Francisco Bay. By the way, this would be a good place to go if you like bird life. I think there's some great bird watching around there. And the house was built in 1964, and so this is what it actually looks like. And it's kind of interesting to think about the choices that Robert Bechtle made with this painting, particularly when we reveal something. I didn't know anything about this until Robin and I started working on this program. This is another picture of it. Apparently, they have got a nice hybrid car. The people who live there, but it's not. It's a duplex. It's a duplex house, and this image does not give you that sense, right? You don't realize that this is a two houses put together. Any thoughts on like why would he do that? Why would is he like kind of misleading us in cropping out the other house?
I think he just wanted a slick, simple backdrop for the car, frankly.
So you
But a
just think,
backdrop that says, you know, nice, basic family house here.
yeah, and it would be a pretty busy image if he tried to include the other side of the duplex. And then Nick, yeah, I like that thought. Brady kids, and could Alice even fit in this car? It's a pretty big car, right? Maybe.
V8, right? Those are V8s.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I think our family had a similar one. Sarah says, I love how the green is also captured in the garage door. I mean, this is something, he's doing. He's giving us this palette, which again evokes like a time and a place. Roger says, I recall sitting in a back seat looking out that back window in a real Woody in an earlier period. Yeah, they had like a back seat that kind of faced the other way, right? I think our families had that too. So it really does kind of take you to a time and a place. And I'm wondering, like, what do you think? Well, we'll get to Bechtel's own history and how it might relate to this. But what is his attitude about this subject? Do you think do you think it's a positive view of this? Is it negative? Is it neutral? I'd love to hear what folks think of that. So,
I think it reflects or expresses the post-World War II optimism and economic upturn in the United States, and how most people's aspiration was to get a house, often with federal government help with the mortgage. And not only could you afford a basic house for your family, you could get yourself a real nice car.
yeah, it's like it is kind of the American dream that we're talking about here, in living in Alameda. What about you, Nikki?
Yeah, thank you, Robin. I was thinking the same thing. I think that's one of the reasons I love old school cars so much, because it really reflects the time in our country when many people, were thriving. We had people getting education, higher education. with a GI loan. That was my dad's experience, and able to buy homes and able to buy cars. And we were thriving because these things, all our products were being made here, and they were being union made so that, one person could hold up a family with the income and with the benefits that they got from their, organized labor group. And we were major parts, major segments of the population were thriving then. And I have a story about a friend of mine. Oh my gosh, the mother had passed away, and they donated the car. And it was a Coronet. This is about 5 years ago. It was a Coronet with barely any miles on it, and they just gave it away. And I was so upset. And I thought to myself, why are you so upset about that? And it's because of what that car represented. It represented the time when we were kids, in the 60s. And we were not aware of other people struggling as much as, we're aware of that now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting if you think about this house now and you talk about, this being the American dream and a family could live in this house and then they might have a nice car. And today in the Bay Area, when we talk about housing, it's kind of a different conversation, right? Like a lot of these places are probably really expensive now.
And even if you can afford the mortgage, you can't afford the property taxes. If you're buying it recently, the property taxes are going to kill you.
Yep, but we don't want to go to don't want to go to all that. Sarah points out that she sees a sense of optimism, and there's even like he cleans up the cracks in the driveway, so you can see it's like this very interesting treatment of the pavement. And then if we look at some of our photos, oh, sorry, I'm trying to switch to the like we can see, yeah. Now the cracks may have come later.
And not only can you not afford the taxes, you can't afford the car.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to some other pictures. But by the way, that painting, Alameda Gran Torino, is at SF MoMA, and it's in the permanent collection. And it's something that if you go on the second floor, you'll be able to see it. It's I think in my mind one of the most popular pieces in the collection. So this is another place very close to where you are, Robin, right? Clay and Mountain
Yes.
Streets.
Yeah, it's not far.
And this is one he actually did in 2004. So it's kind of interesting to compare the mood of this with the mood of Alameda Gran Torino. Is it the same? Do we get like is it again an optimistic image, or do we kind of go to different places with this one?
Well, there's certainly more housing clutter in the background. It's not all about the car.
That's a good point. Like he's really cropped it. Like the Alameda Gran Torino, it's pretty, just the car in the house. Here we're seeing a lot more stuff around it. See the telephone lines, and we'll see that in some of the other paintings he does. And these are, that Alameda Gran Torino was done in the 1970s. This is 30 years later, and I do think maybe there is a different mood to it. Love to hear from folks either in chat or if you want to unmute, if you get a sense of a different mood in this painting than at the first one we looked at, Alameda Gran Torino.
Well, the
And
cars here are a lot smaller. You
the
know,
say that again, Nikki. What's a lot smaller?
the cars are a lot smaller.
They are small. That's right. We don't have one of these big uh, station wagons
Yeah.
in this one. So different cars. So I take note that there's shadows that are kind of an important part of the painting. We did have shadows in that first one. Let's go back to that. So we have the shadow of the car in the first one, and then in this later one, let's see if I can get to it. Nope. This one, the shadows on the house, I think, is real interesting, and this is pretty cool what he does with the shadow coming off of this Spanish Revival roof.
Well, I don't even see a driveway.
Yeah, this is a house without a driveway. It's on-street parking only, I think.
Well, so it's not even clear that these houses belong to the homeowner.
The cars, the cars might
The
belong to
cows, I
someone else.
mean, the cars, yeah, don't clearly belong to the home.
Yeah, it's a different kind of a different thing. Sarah says, interesting how he cut off the palm tree. This painting is less curated. So he's making different choices here. Like it is pretty interesting over here that this palm tree is cut off.
But he included the garbage cans or the recycling cans.
The recycling can that, and there's something that really kind of gives you another sense of time
Mhm.
and place. Like now we kind of know if you wouldn't have to really study it too hard to realize it's from a different time. Karen says it's a lot busier and more inclusive. So we're getting a more of a sense of the place. One thing that always jumps out at me in these paintings is you don't see people. We see houses, we see cars, things that are used by people, but we never see the people themselves.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you a little bit more about where this one is. So this is the location. Let me see if I can move. I got something blocking my screen here, so give me a second here. Zoom. So yeah, this is 2830 Clay Street. So again, really, it's very close. This is all very close to where you are, right, Robin?
Yeah, that's like 2 blocks from my house. I'm on Post Street, in the lower right-hand corner there on your map.
You're right down here. So
Yeah.
this is really like we're taking a painterly waltz through your neighborhood.
Yep.
And then I did find this is from Google Earth. This is what the house looks like now. So kind of interesting. Um, you want to,
Plenty of telephone wires and electrical wires.
yep, they have not undergrounded here. Although we're going to get to some paintings where they seem to have done some undergrounding. And then this house has changed colors. It's now like this beige color as opposed to the white. And I don't know, are we allowed to have an opinion on that? I hope the homeowner isn't tuning into this. But I kind of like the white a little better. How about you, Robin? Which do you like better, the white or this beige?
Um, uh, I don't have a strong feeling either way. I mean, both of them are pretty light colors that contrast with the red tile on the roof and the red. There's a lot of houses in Alameda that for some reason have these red painted stairs and front walk and then a red painted driveway. And those are original. I had it in my house too, but I've added paver stones. So I got rid of mine. But for some reason, lots of homes have it. You don't see it in Bechtle's version, but it's definitely there in the photo.
That's interesting. So I actually do have a red stairway leading up to my deck to my front door. So I guess I'm in that category myself.
Do you have
Roger
a red
says
tile roof?
we do not have a red tile roof.
Oh, so the color coordination thing isn't working for you.
No, yeah, I don't know. Are we supposed to have the same color as our roof? It's like so your belt and your shoes. Roger says, reminds me of a boring neighborhood where I was stuck on a job assignment. So I like that thought, Roger, because we're going to get to some information on how Bechtel felt about all this. And then we'll talk about this painting. And this is notable. It's called 56 Chrysler. He did this in 1965. So this is like from really early in his career. And we didn't really give you a lot of background about him. He begins doing these paintings in the early 1960s. And for most of the 1960s, he's known for doing these houses and cars. And then in the 70s, he's going to kind of branch out a bit and do more, some that have people in them. But then he'll come back to this later on. And we're going to stick with the houses and the cars for this presentation. So this one is notable. We have the address for it, 1006 Mound Street. What's so special about 1006 Mound Street, Robin?
Well, this wasn't Bechtel's first home, but he moved here when I think he was about 10 years old and grew up here, went to Alameda High School. So you can consider it his childhood home.
Yep, this is his childhood home. And again, like do we have a mood from this? Do we maybe get a sense of the emotions he has about where he grew up?
Well, the background to this car is pretty whitewashed, I must say.
So the background's kind of whitewashed. It's kind of interesting that, yeah, it does have this prominent white background color. Interesting palette, right? The pinks, the whites,
The
the
pale
grays.
pink in front, then, because if you couldn't have bright colors competing with this pale pink and gray car, could you?
Yeah, I guess I probably not, right? I think, like, do we have a sense of like what the lives of the people inside this house might be like? Do you think, is it a happy home?
Looks kind of sterile to me, but
It's kind of sterile. Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot, you know, there's a lot we don't know looking at this. Interesting that he has this street crossing thing here. That's a real choice he made because that's actually, I don't believe that is there. I think that's something he adds to the painting.
it's not there anymore. Who knows what it was like back when he painted this, but
It seems like you wouldn't have a crosswalk there, though, because well, maybe it's near one, right? Maybe there's one coming up. But we'll show you a picture of the actual house, which seems very different. And again, I think people like they don't want their homes to be white anymore, right?
Looks
And,
so different.
and Sarah's saying the car is ready to move, crossing. Yeah, it's kind of maybe it shouldn't be there or something, right? But yeah, this is Robin, you took this picture of the house.
well, the reason I had to take it from this angle, you can see on the far left of this picture, there's a pretty big tree that almost completely blocks the view of the house from the street
Oh yeah,
if
we
you're
can.
standing on the other side of it.
So it's these things either they've changed or he made like some different choices. Like that tree is totally not in this painting. But then again, it's been
Quite a few years.
yeah, almost 60 years now. So kind of
And
interesting. Like we talked about these being like maybe a sterile, boring neighborhood, but really that's changed, right? 60 years later.
yeah, and I don't know if you remember this, Rodney, but the owner of the house actually attended that Zoom call of the Rotary meeting when you gave your talk. So he actually got to be a participant um, in that discussion.
That was so much fun, Robin. So we had I think you reached out to him, and then when we did this presentation, we had the guy who lives in this house, and he's on Zoom, and he's in the house when he's doing the Zoom, and he's talking about what like I think they said they bought the house in before they realized that it was in a Robert Bechtle painting, and then just only found out later.
Well, at least that fact wasn't being used to crank up the price.
Yeah, so and maybe that is going to happen now. People are going to have this. I don't know. Those of us who love the works of Robert Bechtel maybe would want to live in one of his homes. Interesting to me as a Haight-Ashbury guide because one of the homes on that tour is the home where the Grateful Dead lived, 710 Ashbury, and the people who lived there tried to sell it. And when it went on the market, the, at the open house, there were hundreds of people who showed up, and I guess they scared all the real buyers away. Nobody made a serious offer on that house. So sometimes you don't want to live in a famous house. Here's another view of it. And Roger says the current house looks inviting, especially if that's a bench on the front porch. Is that a bench or is it? I guess it's got to be, right? This thing right here.
um,
So Roger's ready to put an offer on this thing.
yeah, good.
Art Viewing Adventures will vouch for your offer. This is the house next door, by the way, with the this little archway, which I kind of like. So again, like it's a very different treatment here in this image, the archway. It's a little more. It's like almost like these perfectionist images of these places, And then when we see it later on, we get a little more sense of the reality of these places.
Is it the slide, or is the top of the Bechtel painting, is the top of the little tower on his childhood home cut off as well? It's cut off in the slide.
Let's go back. Yeah, he does. Again, he cuts off the palm tree in the one we saw before, and he does cut off the top of the little tower of his house.
And all the detail, I mean, most of the detail is all the horizontal lines of those little mini blinds in the front of the house. That's like one of the most prominent features. And the same kind of blind, well, I don't know if they're mini blinds, but then there's also the blinds on the house next door. So
There's
not sure what's going on with that, but it's
yeah,
definitely, they don't want you peering in the window.
yeah. You get that sense of like, well, again, we don't see the people who live in these houses. And then just from like, I don't know if you love modern art, like we've got people like Saw LeWitt who love doing things with straight lines, and he is almost kind of creating something like that with these, these wonderful lines that he adds to these windows. So it's very uncluttered. And Sarah says, interesting that you don't see the front door of either house. The houses are almost like impenetrable. And Mark is pointing out these are Mediterranean revival houses. Yeah, so it's like that, the architecture of your neighborhood, Robin, right? Would you call that Mediterranean revival or?
We usually call it these Southwest revival because for us, they're kind of evocative of the original Spanish heritage with the red tile roofs and I mean, that's how we think of them.
Yeah, and that Spanish revival, I think that became a really popular style in the early 20th century. I was just reading about that there like Southern California that kind of became a thing, and then it spread all throughout California. That's what I know about all that.
My father grew up in Southern California in a house like that
Yep.
with the red tile roof and the stucco, and it was very popular.
So again, here's what it looks like today. And you do see the front door. And he really like doesn't like this porch is totally not a thing. I don't know if that was added later, maybe, but just you kind of get a sense of the evolution of houses when you start from the Bechtel painting. Here's a quote that I ran across. I'm going to throw two quotes at you guys. So this is what a museum curator said about Bechtel. He said, "A master of the deadpan, he creates images so familiar we have a hard time seeing them, let alone interpreting them. There are no specific political agendas, philosophical pretensions, or spiritual overtones. Yet they carry an ineffable mystery about the meaning of a good, if not heroic, life in our time." So I don't know. Does anybody have thoughts on that? I, I think I do like this idea that there is something kind of deadpan. There is something like it's almost like a Rorsch test where he's not really telling you how to, he's not signaling a lot of emotion, right? Although it does seem to me like this idealization of a time and a place. So I
I
want
like
to.
the idea of a Rorschach test that you're maybe projecting on it what you think about that time period.
In one thing I've gotten giving this presentation, I've had people talk about, well, this was a time we had the American dream. We had, what people want a house, they want a car. But what we're kind of leaving out of that is a lot of these places were exclusionary, and they would not like let black residents buy in. There were covenants that prevented black people from moving in to some of these places. And it's the American dream, but it's not the American dream for everybody. And that to say that the painting has that in it, I don't know if you can really say that, but I can imagine it taking many people to that place. And why not, right? Thoughts on that? And Nikki, feel free to jump in if you have thoughts on that too.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. I mean, I live in San Francisco on the west side, the Ingleside and by the edge of Sir Francis Woods. And, we hear stories about those very incidences happening, and we know that Willie Mays was denied buying a home right down here. I think it was on Denslow. Um, he could have been our neighbor, but at that time in history, he wasn't allowed. So it's a very ugly piece of history that I'm glad you said it. I'm glad you said it, that, we need to acknowledge it. So,
And people seeing this painting in like 1965 or 1975, or then they might not go to that place, and it's maybe us today, but it's still a valuable function of art to make us think about that. So we got more houses to consider here. Oh, but first, a quote from Robert Bechtle himself. This really surprised me. He said, "When I was in high school, I used to hate the look of the house in those little bungalows. I couldn't stand it. It all seemed so chock-a-block next to each other and repetitious and kind of smug." So you think, oh, he must think highly of these places that he's depicting, but not in that quote. That's from 2012. Um, so we've got more houses to look at. This is again going back to Mound Street, Robin. And I don't think you and I have seen this one before, but this was the Chronicle ran this. There's an article in the Chronicle, and I'm gonna put it in chat in case you guys want to check it out. Where the writer, I believe he lives in Alameda, and he started kind of talking to people in the neighborhood about what it's like to live in this neighborhood that has all these houses. And Robin, I don't think you and I have discussed that article, so you may really enjoy that. Maybe he's one of your neighbors.
Oh, I gotta check him out. Yeah.
But this is contrasted. This view of, and this is from early 2000s, like in the early aughts. But this is what the street looks like today. And I guess we see like the trees are getting bigger, and the cars are a little different. So he seems to like, I don't know, there's some very distinctive looks to these cars that he shows us, I think. And he might not like something a little more generic like this in his paintings. This is a photograph, in case that's not obvious. And so he's got the stop here, and it's still there, but it's kind of faded. It's kind of fun to look at these paintings and then see the actual places as they are today.
And I should add, it's not surprising there'd be a crosswalk there because just around the corner is an elementary school. So
Ah,
kids walking to school, that would be a kind of necessary, I would think, feature.
and that's why he has that crossing thing over the. That's why he has that cross. What is that thing that we see on the? I'll go back to it.
It says Xing, like crossing. Yeah,
So maybe actually that really is there because the stop sign's not very far. It's just up the street from this, right?
right. And so that certainly shows, well, it's a safe neighborhood for kids. We want them to get to school safely.
Yeah. Oh, and so let's go back to that. Leon has a comment on the one that we were just looking at. So Leon says again, this seems to be more of a neighborhood scene rather than specific to a house or a car. And this is actually that same block. So this is his house from seen down the street. I believe. Let's see. I think is this his house, Robin? I think that's
Yeah,
right. There's the porch.
yeah.
And then we've got the other house next door, and you can't really see the little archway, but that's there. So it's just a very different view. He keeps going back to this place where he grew up. I wonder if like people in the neighborhood, well, actually, I was going to wonder if people in the neighborhood might have seen him working on this painting, but I know the answer to that because he worked from photographs. He would come and take a photograph and then take it to his studio and work on these. And so, yeah, and actually, this is so you can see his house here, and then this is that house next door with the archway. And then this is another Alameda scene, a kind of a bungalow that he painted. And then this is how it looks today. It's really, really changed quite a bit. And I'm not sure exactly where this is, Robin. Does this seem like a familiar house to you?
Yeah, it looks familiar. But I can't tell you exactly. I hadn't seen this I don't remember seeing this picture before. So, um,
It's somewhere near you, somewhere in your neighborhood.
yeah,
And kind of fun to see the way the house has changed over time. Again, do we get a mood from this? Is this just kind of a deadpan portrayal of the house?
doesn't even have a car.
Right, this one doesn't even have a car. Leon says, totally interesting cropping of this picture. Yeah, I think as a photographer, if you cropped in this way, I think people might, I don't know, would a photographer do that? Let me throw that out to the group.
There's as much empty street as there is house in the painting.
Yeah, and also I love the way the street in the house, the street's part of the palette of the house, whereas you don't obviously here I don't know if he changed the color or if more likely it seems like the people who live there probably changed the color.
Is that picture more current?
Yeah, I think so. This
Or
is from the Chronicle, from their article, and then Leon's comment. You could almost say it's a painting of the street rather than the house.
Yeah, actually, I think more than half of the surface area is of the street or the sidewalks.
So it this is like, we would call this negative space, and it's really kind of dominating the picture. Um, it makes me think of Edward Hopper because he was known for using a lot of negative space to create the mood of his paintings. So why do you think he's doing that? Any thoughts on like why would you what do we get when we see so much of the street? We see so much of this negative space. It kind of gives us a little bit of a distance maybe from the subject.
Literally and figuratively. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, I mean, not only do you not see any people and you can't see who's inside because the windows are all covered, but there's not even anybody on the street, no cars, no nothing. I mean, it's like it's a house in Alameda, but might as well be in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, I mean, we started doing this program 2.5 years ago when the pandemic, had everything totally shut down, and we kind of thought, oh, these again, totally not Bechtle's intention, but these paintings kind of reflect the mood that we all had about seeing people in car, see or not seeing people. So kind of interesting. Um, I just saw that Paco may have joined. Paco is one of our most loyal audience members in Paco. He's got a new hey there. He says hi. He's got a new job with the um, Museum of Natural
Academy of Sciences.
Academy of Sciences. That's it.
Yeah.
So great to have you with us, Paco. So we'll move on. Here's another one, and I do not know where this house is. And I don't even know if it's in Alameda, but this was one of my favorites because I do think it contrasts with a lot of the others with some of the things you see with like how the yard is a little torn up, the car isn't exactly in pristine condition. It's just like a little bit different mood. And this is from 1973, so a little bit later on. Like a lot of those paintings we saw before were from the 1960s. So why do we think he's doing this here? Why would he change? He's not really idealizing the images anymore. Any thoughts on why he might be what he's after, what he's trying to convey with that?
Well, you can also see in the windows, if you look in that slanted bay window, you can't see anything specific, but you can see that there's items in there, and that's a first based on what you've been showing us.
That's true. Yeah, we get a little more sense of the people inside. I love the contrasts in color. So, we were seeing really, palettes that had similar colors, but this car really stands out in this painting. If someone unmuted and wanted to say something, please go ahead and do so. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Oh, great to see you, Rodney and Nikki. But
Hi.
I'm about to leave Khan Academy too.
Well, really glad you could join us, Paco.
Glad you could step in.
Yeah. Leon says, from this one, I get the impression that he really liked painting white. That's a great observation, Leon. We see a lot of really amazing whites in some of the other paintings we've been looking at. And, and also you just get this kind of really radiant white color here, like the sun kind of being reflected on the house.
I
And
like
it's got the same, it's got
Go
the
ahead.
same red steps and red sidewalk next to a red driveway. But the steps and the sidewalk look kind of dingy next to the driveway. So somebody's been maintaining the driveway, but the front steps not so much.
That's funny. So there you go. The driveway is more important to them than the front steps. They don't really want people coming in the house, but they want a nice place to park their car. Yeah. Do you think, just, we don't know, but Robin, would you guess that this house is in Alameda?
Yeah, I think I've seen it.
Yeah. It seems like it's got the Spanish Revival roof, right? It does seem like it would fit in.
Well, it looks like actually they're faking you on that. It looks like there's just a row of bricks at the edge of the roof. But if you look at the rest of the roof, it looks like it doesn't have the bricks, the tiles.
Oh, this is like a facade or something up here.
Yeah, they're kind of
Revival.
saving money. Maybe there was a supply chain issue with getting the red tile.
Yeah.
it's an optional illusion.
Yeah, exactly.
So then we're going to move on to some other pictures that are not from Alameda, they're from San Francisco. And he lived in Potrero Hill for many years until the end of his life. He died in 2020. And this is actually the first time I think I've done this program since he passed away. But again, do you guys get a mood from this one? Is he portraying these houses and cars in the same way he's portrayed the ones in Alameda?
Hmm.
Cool gray city of love, Sarah says. Yeah.
Like that.
So it seems like maybe you get more of a sense of a cool scene, We've got the bright sun here of like what maybe is a late afternoon, but then yeah, this car is in the shadows.
Well, and you
Margaret
can see it's a steep hill. I mean, Alameda's an island, it's completely flat. So the first thing I noticed is, hey, we're in San Francisco and you've got some hills.
Yeah, that's a great observation. And so his new area where he's going to do these paintings he likes to really emphasize the hills. Margaret says there is a starkness of light and dark. Yeah, it really is. And I think it maybe is notable. This is later in his life, and he is someone who is seeing like kind of the stark contrast between light and dark. Maybe that's something you take note of in the autumn of your life. We've got the different features. The bus stop for a muni bus, the garbage can here, the poles and the telephone wires in the stop sign. Notable, I think, because we're going to see actually some actual scenes of these places, and the telephone wires aren't there anymore. Margaret says sharp lines, very few curves. Boy, that's a great observation. I think you could say that about a lot of these paintings, that he really does like, sharp, distinct lines and there aren't a lot of curves in any of the paintings that we've been looking at.
And
Other thoughts?
well, he's so being so into cars. I'm kind of surprised he didn't put the car on that opposite corner in the sunlight. It's more subdued, the value, maybe the value of the car, because people are, the value of the car is starting to dwindle, especially in San Francisco. Um,
Yep. It's just something you have to worry about parking. Maybe that's what happened to him. He moved to San Francisco, and suddenly cars became more of a liability for him.
Nobody wants to drive to the city. If you're from Alameda, you take public transit. You avoid driving to SF at all costs.
Yep. Tell me about it. I've got to go in tomorrow, and I think I have to take my car, and I'm kind of dreading it.
we
Ugh.
have that wonderful ferry from Alameda. People love the ferry. It's like,
Yep. I love the ferries.
how
I
long does it take?
Me too, Rodney.
You're a big ferry fan, Paco?
Yes, I love ferries too.
Yep. They're the best way to get around. Um, so I was talking about how he really emphasizes the hills. And so, so Robin, you were the one who made that observation, I think, right?
Yeah.
Um, so what do you think of this painting? Or this is actually, I guess it's more of a charcoal. I don't know if I can accurately call it a painting, but
Well, it's a lot. It's more about contrasts, I think, than details.
yep, yeah, you get a real sense of contrast, the light versus the shadow, the different features of the house. And it's the same house that we saw a moment ago. I think we can see this doorway here, and if we look at that one, it is the exact same place. So kind of interesting. Looks like a grainy photograph. Love the texture, Margot says. And Leon, I think you were also talking about this one, saying that one I really like. And then we've got again, we are talking about like lines, and we've got the telephone lines going in. And again, he's likes the stop sign and things like that. But what's funny for me is this is 20th Street. It's Potrero Hill, by the way, like 20th in Texas, a morning scene. But I went on Google Earth and took a picture, and the telephone lines are gone. I don't know if this happened while Bechtel was still alive, and if he was maybe unhappy. He's maybe sad to see the telephone lines go, but they have undergrounded in this neighborhood, which kind of, first of all, is going to bring up the property values. Also, one thing I noticed also is we still got this opening here with that really interesting pattern. But let me see if I can go backwards. If we go back, we got these garages here. We saw that in the other one too. Oh, hold on here. So, well, this one shows a little bit of the garage. But yeah, you've got these garages. And now when we go to the actual current photograph, they filled them in. So it's kind of like a little bit of a time capsule, I guess. So what do you think? Like, what do you guys think of the mood of this? I think we were saying earlier, like there was a thought that a lot of those ones from the Alameda period are, we had the critic who said they were kind of deadpan. Would you say that about these also?
I don't remember the adjective deadpan for Alameda, says the Alameda resident, but
Well, yeah, it was that curator who said it. I don't know if I agreed with him.
uh,
I didn't think it was deadpan. I thought it was more, he's holding back a lot, but ultimately it seems like a pretty positive
I
image.
get a positive vibe. So, although I'm not sure about the one that's more street than house.
Yeah, maybe we should go back to that. And I apologize, folks. I'm usually pretty good at jumping around in these things, but I have to be a little, I have to just go through them individually today. So we think of that as a positive image, negative, neutral. I think I'm gonna, Well,
It's a head scratcher.
it's a head scratcher. I don't know why. It just really makes me think of Edward Hopper for some reason, even though a Hopper painting would have people in it. In Hopper, of course, is I think people see that as kind of melancholy. Is this a melancholy image?
Kind of to me, it's kind of dingy looking almost.
Yeah, it's funny that it's morning because I mean if you said, "Oh, what time of day is this?" I would say, "Oh, this is the end of the day."
Looks like a newspaper print.
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting technique he's done, like kind of a almost pointillism.
Mhm.
I'm forgetting the name for the newspaper process that they use to render photographs, but you're right, Nikki. It's very much like that, especially with these lines. Leon says somewhat invokes foggy San Francisco without any actual fog.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. It's like implied fog, right? Or well, this one maybe
Is that a new weather term, implied fog?
the implied fog.
I love
I don't
that.
know. I know about brain fog. It is, Potrero Hill is the neighborhood that gets the least amount of fog, but it certainly gets some. So I'll just show you. This is one, again, not Alameda. This is Albany, very close to where I live. So, Robin, I'm just like you. I live near some Robert Bechtle houses, and this one is from, hold on, this one is from 1998, so kind of later in his career, and it's called Marin Avenue, Late Afternoon.
So what's that blurry line?
Oh, the blurry line is because I had to copy this. I did,
Out of a book, right?
it came from a book.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
right.
apologies
What is
to
that?
the late Robert Bechtle for doing that with his painting. I really wanted to show this image because I see it all the time. The house.
I thought it was a pole of some sort that got distorted, but I
No, I'm sorry. Robert Bechtle's probably like groaning in his grave right now because I've altered his image, and I should try. You know what? If I should try to find like a better version of this that doesn't have that. The car is longer than the width of the house. Oh, that's a great observation, Cindy. I'd never noticed that before. I think that's kind of an optical
That's from the
illusion, but
perspective. It's from
yeah,
the perspective.
but it's kind of great. It's kind of great that it makes you think that. Oh yeah, I'm being told 20th Street morning is charcoal on paper. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So then here's what it looks like today. And it now has I just have to say this because I'm a bike nut. It has a nice bike lane, making this street what goes from being a very dangerous street to bike on to being a pretty safe street to bike on. And now you can't park a car in front of it that would be wider than the house because maybe one of those long bikes would go by and the long bike would be longer than the house. I don't know. So, is there a mood? Let's go back. I just like that question. Do we get a mood from this painting?
Well, the fogginess gives it, kind of a sleepy or sleepy feel to it.
Yeah, so you get a sense of like a sleepy feel to it.
Want to stay inside and get a cup of coffee and turn on as the world turns.
Yeah, and it is again another one of these images without any people in it,
Mhm.
and you do sense like where are the people? What are they doing? Which is something I often get from Robert Bechtel paintings.
So are you saying the individual who owns the house can no longer park right in front of their own home?
Yep, they can't
Like
park
when,
there. They
oh,
can't park there because I'm going to be biking by, Nikki, and I need to be kept safe.
And that's why they have those, you see, they have those posts there.
mhm.
Yep,
That basically prevents you from parking there.
Oh,
that
that's
doesn't stop the UPS guys, but sorry, UPS people. But yeah, we bicyclists, we really do appreciate having safe routes to ride on. Um, Leon says focused on a single house, but really a lot of the neighborhood is presented. That's a great observation. And yeah, I better go back to the actual image.
Um,
Um, since
Framework.
since the other one is a photograph I took. But yeah, that's true, you know. We saw in Alameda Gran Torino, he was really just showing us the house and the car. And then later on he is broadening his scope to show us more.
Well, maybe he's trying to say the house is more important than the car, because this looks like one of those, it's got a little hip roof. It's probably got not more than 1,000 square feet. It's probably got 3 tiny little bedrooms, 1 bathroom. These are modest little starter homes. So the car is actually fancier and more spacious as these things go than the house.
It really emphasizes how small the house is. And it's great that
Yeah,
you observe that, Robin, because these were starter homes, but now they're certainly not priced like starter homes.
no.
So some of them have gotten a little bigger. One thing we saw was somebody not far from this. They bought the property next to theirs and then tore down the house on it. And basically, to create a bigger house, they had to buy the property next door.
I'll bet they spent a lot on permits too.
Jennifer says the painting has fire lighting. I'm not sure I'm understanding what fire lighting. Can you tell us more about that, Jennifer? Um, and I think some of this stuff is you're going to see some of this may be from the scanning process. So this is not a Robert Bechtle painting. In fact, this is not a painting at all. This is a photograph that I took. It just shows that you can take a picture of a car in front of a house in Alameda, and it won't necessarily be a classic. It won't be a masterpiece. So I just had to do that. I call it Alameda Vista Cruiser, and if anyone wants to buy it from me, let's talk. Yeah.
Well, you do see the clutter in the house on the background kind of detracts from the car.
Yep. I think I need to go spend more time in your neighborhood, Robin, and find some better subjects. Thought I'd show a couple more of these Bechtel paintings. We're running out of time, so we'll wrap up in a couple minutes. But this is something he did kind of. He calls it 56 Plymouth, 1963. But what do you guys like? What do you notice about this painting? What's going on here?
The person in the mirror stands out to me.
Yeah, you got a person in a mirror. You
And you
could
got
call this.
somebody on a piece of on a, I don't know which bill it is, but looks like a face from a 5, 10, $20 bill.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like this looks like George Washington. And
Yeah,
this thing, he's called a photorealist, but this is almost like photo surrealism. You
yeah.
know, this is like a very interesting kind of arresting image from early in his career, 1963. And then here's one from very late in his career. This is a self-portrait from 2004. So this is Robert Bechtel, and kind of a nice, I don't know, gives you a sense of who we've been talking about. Great Bay Area resident and great American painter Robert Bechtel, who passed away a couple years ago, and we've been talking about his works in this program. So I think we should probably wrap this up. Any last thoughts, Robin, um, before we move on?
Oh, I think that from the houses in my neighborhood, I really do get a sense when I go through my neighborhood that the houses were built during the post-World War II period of affluence and optimism. And I think the houses reflect that. The cars don't. Now we have a lot of Teslas and things. So
Yes.
cars are given a different message. I guess that's affluence too, if you can afford a Tesla.
So couldn't it
But
be Alameda Tesla?
yeah, maybe we need to, yeah, if you want to come over, Rodney, we'll find a place for you to park your car,
Well, no,
take
no,
a picture.
and I do like actually, Robin. I want to think about like it's so much fun talking about these paintings and then seeing the pictures of the actual places, I kind of feel like we should figure out a way to do a walking tour of Alameda and go by some of these places. And maybe we'll just need some really good visual aids so we can see the Bechtle paintings. And then I did have this. I had this very last. See if I can skip to it. This last image was a friend of yours who is a architecture walking tour guide.
Historian. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to say, like we've seen some places in Alameda in this program, but it's a place with a lot of really cool Victorian architecture.
Woody Miner is our local architecture historian, and he's currently working with the Alameda Architecture Preservation Society, or AAPS, to come up with a complete photographic catalog of every home in Alameda to preserve it for posterity.
So
So he's very
we
dedicated to our architectural heritage.
I think I'm going to reach out to him and see if there's some way we can maybe. I'd love to do an Alameda architecture program on for art viewing adventures in the future. So we'll just think about that.
Well, if
Um,
you don't do it with Woody, then people from Alameda are going to wonder what's the matter with you.
oh yeah, I'm going to do it with if Woody's willing to do it. That's what I definitely want to do. So Robin, thank you so much for working with me on this. It's always
My
great
pleasure.
talking to you, and I feel very fortunate that we're both tour guides for San Francisco City Guides. Nikki, thanks so much for being part of this as always, and Jennifer, a great job as technical moderator. Really appreciate that. Very
And
cool.
great
that
to see you, Rodney.
yeah, great having you, Paco. We didn't think we were going to, and we're really thrilled to have you. Hope you can do that more often than not.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, and
Bye, Oh, Nikki.
yeah, and happy Latino Heritage Month, and coming up is Artwood Elders right after this. And Rodney, what's the next art viewing?
I think we're going to be talking about Pier 24, the great photography space in San Francisco. And I went with two of my good friends from SF MoMA, Charlie Goldberg and Fred, I'm spacing out his name. Fred, help me out here. A little brain hiccups. Fred Silverman. It's like Goldman and Silverman. It just kind of Goldberg and Silverman. We're going to be doing we're going to talk about some of the photographs we saw there that we really loved, and it's always great talking to those guys. They're both really knowledgeable about photography. So we'll be back with that. Thanks again, Robin,
My
and
pleasure.
everybody stay well, and we'll see you in a couple weeks for Art Viewing Adventures.